Rega kuchema, rega kundirova, rega kundiduka chichemunda chiswa.
How Bulawayo helped build Zimbabwe's sound. There are musicians people remember because they produced successful songs. Then there are musicians whose work preserves the world from which the songs emerged. Solomon Skuza belongs to that second group. His music carried more than melody. It carried liberation memory, family inheritance, regional language, migration, social conflict, and the unfinished questions of independence. To understand Solomon Skuza, we must therefore understand the world around the music, and that world was larger than the municipal boundaries of Bulawayo. It included Plumtree, Bulilima, the villages and border communities of Matabeleland South, the railway routes leading into the city, and the movement of workers between Zimbabwe, Botswana, Zambia, and South Africa. Bulawayo stood at the center of that circulation. People arrived with languages, they arrived with family histories, they arrived with church music, rural compositions, township rhythms, military songs and records brought back from across the border. The city did not simply receive those influences, it organized them. It gave musicians audiences, bands, beer halls, hotels, radio exposure, recording, opportunities and access to a wider Zimbabwean public. Solomon Skuza entered that musical world through both family and war. His father played the accordion and introduced music into the household. Skuza later joined the liberation struggle through ZPRA in the camps. Music was not a luxury placed outside the war. It was part of the emotional infrastructure of the struggle. Songs could strengthen morale, they could preserve purpose, they could create temporary relief for young people living with uncertainty, separation, and the possibility of death. Skuza performed within that environment. He emerged from the war carrying both musical experience and a permanent understanding of sacrifice. After independence, his band became known as the Fallen Heroes. Skuza did not remain only a liberation musician. His catalogue grew beyond the battlefield. It entered romance, betrayal, money, public conduct, social ambition, political scandal, and the everyday negotiations through which people attempted to build lives in a newly independent country. He worked across Kalanga, isiNdebele, Shona and English. That multilingualism was not a marketing ornament. It reflected the audience around him. Southwestern Zimbabwe was never culturally sealed. People crossed linguistic boundaries through work, marriage, trade, migration, and political history. Musician performing in Bulawayo could face an audience containing several Zimbabwean worlds at once. Skuza understood how to enter that room. He could remain rooted in Kalanga and Indebele experience while speaking to listeners elsewhere in the country. He did not treat regional identity as a prison. He treated it as a foundation, that is one of Bulawayo, as great musical contributions. The city demonstrated that a musician did not have to erase where he came from in order to become nationally intelligible. The language could remain specific. The rhythm could remain connected to a region. The history could remain recognizable, and the music could still belong to Zimbabwe. This is the Arts Desk of the Kopje Journal and Review. The Arts Desk examines the books, music, artists, cultural memory, and historical works that help Zimbabwe, South Africa, and the wider African region understand themselves. Our work does not stop at whether a song became popular. We examine the society inside the music, the lives it documented, the memories it carried, and the reasons it continues to matter. That is why this episode is not a review of 4 songs. The music excerpts allow us to hear the artists, but the subject is the larger Zimbabwean world contained across their work. Through Solomon Skuza and Ilanga, we are asking a wider question. What did Bulawayo contribute to Zimbabwean music, and why can the national sound not be properly understood without the city, its surrounding region, and the musicians who traveled through its cultural world?
You know, when a man is far away, he's got that habit of looking up for an open hand. Sometimes there's one, and sometimes there's none. Are you happy, Mama Maria, that we are together now? Are you happy, Mama Maria, that we are together now? Are you happy, Mama Maria, that we are together now? Tonight I'm gonna celebrate my love for you.
Solomon Skuza's second contribution was his ability to make public argument live inside popular music. Independence had created enormous expectations. The war was over. A black government had entered office. Zimbabweans were attempting to build households, careers, institutions, and a national identity after decades of racial rule and armed conflict. But political independence did not remove human weakness. Money still changed relationships. Status still attracted opportunism. Officials could still misuse power. People could celebrate freedom while recognizing that the promises of freedom were not automatically being fulfilled. Skuza entered that contradiction. He could honor liberation without pretending that the post-independence country was beyond criticism. That distinction gave his work unusual authority. He had not watched the struggle from a safe distance, he had participated in it. When he questioned corruption, inequality, or public conduct, he was not rejecting the meaning of independence. He was asking whether the country remained faithful to the sacrifices through which independence had been achieved. But Skuza rarely abandoned entertainment in order to make the argument. The rhythm continued, the bass continued, the listener could still dance. This balance matters. Popular music does not enter society in the same way as a parliamentary speech or newspaper editorial. It enters weddings, it enters beer halls, it enters buses, it enters shops, homes, growth points, and workplaces. It crosses the border with a worker carrying a cassette. It plays while people are cooking, drinking, traveling, arguing, or remembering someone who is no longer present. A political message placed inside such music acquires another kind of reach. People do not only hear the argument once, they live beside it, they repeat it, they attach it to events in their own lives. Skuza could move between the public and the private without treating them as separate worlds. Love could be affected by money. A relationship could reveal social ambition. Personal betrayal could sit beside political scandal. The behavior of one individual could become evidence of what was changing across the wider country. That was not accidental. Ordinary life is rarely divided into clean departments. A worker does not leave the economy outside when entering a marriage. A family does not stop being affected by politics because it is sitting inside a private home. Public inequality enters domestic life through school fees, transport, employment, housing, and the pressure to survive. Skuza's music understood that system. He could introduce characters and situations rather than delivering an abstract lecture. The listener recognized the behavior. Humor could expose the contradiction. Repetition allowed the message to settle. The instruments carried the emotional conclusion after the words had established the problem. This is why it would be a mistake to reduce Solomon Skuza to a political singer. He documented a much wider moral world. His catalogue entered relationships, memory, pride, hardship, public conduct, and the dignity of people trying to understand a rapidly changing country. The political strength of the work came partly from that breadth. The nation was not presented as an institution floating above ordinary people. It was present inside their choices, It was present in what people valued. It was present in how wealth altered behavior. It was present in whether sacrifice produced responsibility or entitlement. This is also why his music should be treated as more than nostalgia. Nostalgia says, we remember the music because we were younger when we heard it. Cultural memory asks what the music preserved. Skuza preserved a liberation generation attempting to judge the country that followed the war. He preserved the sound of regional languages entering national life with confidence. He preserved a Zimbabwe in which pleasure and criticism could occupy the same performance. The music could be joyful while the argument was serious. The audience could dance while the song asked whether the country was keeping its promises. That combination gave the work durability. The vehicles change, the currency changes, the politicians change. The recording technology changes, but the questions surrounding money, loyalty, power, sacrifice, and public responsibility remain recognizable. That is the difference between a successful catalogue and a social archive. A successful catalogue produces songs people enjoy. A social archive preserves evidence of how people understood their time. Solomon Skuza did both. His music became part of Bulawayo's contribution to national reasoning. The city and its surrounding region were not standing outside Zimbabwean identity, waiting to be included. They were already helping the country explain itself. But Bulawayo's contribution did not operate only through the authority of an individual songwriter. It also operated through bands. It operated through instrumental discipline, rehearsal, collaboration, and the ability to organize several strong musicians into one sound. That takes us into Ilanga. Ilanga opens another door into Bulawayo's musical contribution. Solomon Skuza shows us what one artist could carry through biography, language, and social observation. Ilanga shows us what several musicians could construct together. The group brought exceptional instrumentalists and vocalists into one ensemble. Its musical world included figures such as Don Gumbo, Buzian Cube, Andy Brown, Keith Farquharson, and other musicians whose abilities extended well beyond one narrow genre. They brought bass, guitar, keyboards, percussion, harmony, and several traditions of performance into the same working space. This was not simply a collection of talented individuals. It was a musical institution. A band requires a different discipline from a solo career. The strongest musician cannot occupy every available space. The bassist must listen to the drums. The guitarist must understand when not to play. The keyboards must strengthen the harmony without covering the voice. Percussion must create movement without turning the arrangement into noise. Backing singers must expand the emotional world of the lead vocal. Each person enters with ability, but the song succeeds only when ability becomes cooperation. Ilanga demonstrated that discipline. The group could sound large without sounding confused. Several musical ideas could operate at once because the musicians understood arrangement. One instrument established the road, another responded. The voice entered. Harmony widened the emotional field, percussion added movement. The full band returned the listener to the dance. That level of ensemble performance did not emerge from nowhere. Behind Ilanga stood a much older Bulawayo musical culture. There were township jazz groups, there were church choirs, there were hotel and nightclub performers, there were traditional dances, school groups and family musicians. There were audiences, accustomed to hearing arranged music rather than only an individual singer accompanied by anonymous players. Buzian Cube's musical formation illustrates that continuity. Her background included a father involved in local jazz, church singing with her sisters, traditional performance, percussion, and drums. When she entered Ilanga, she did not arrive as an empty voice waiting for a band to create her. She carried several layers of Bulawayo's musical world with her. Don Gumbo carried another form of authority. The bass guitar is often treated as a background instrument, but in a strong band, the bass determines how the entire piece moves. It holds the relationship between rhythm and harmony. A bassist who can also sing with authority occupies an unusually demanding position. The body is carrying one rhythm while the voice may be moving through another phrase. Gumbo helped make that complexity sound natural. Ilanga therefore allows us to hear the labor behind music. Popular culture often remembers the person closest to the microphone, but national sound is also built by the musician whose name is not announced before every performance. It is built by the person establishing the groove. It is built by the arranger deciding when an instrument should enter. It is built by rehearsal. It is built by musicians correcting one another, disagreeing, listening, and trying again. A serious musical city produces more than celebrities. It produces capabilities. It produces bassists, drummers, percussionists, guitarists. Ilanga was evidence that Zimbabwe possessed that depth. The band also challenged narrow ideas about where Zimbabwean music was supposed to begin and end. It could draw from jazz, rock, reggae, traditional rhythm, church harmony, and the wider Southern African popular music environment. But the result did not become culturally empty. It remained intelligible to Zimbabwean listeners because the musicians were not borrowing influences without judgment. They were deciding what belonged. They were deciding how outside forms could be reorganized inside a local musical imagination. Ilanga's achievement was therefore not simply fusion, it was musical confidence. The band did not believe Zimbabwean identity would collapse because an electric guitar sounded modern or because keyboards entered the arrangement. It understood that culture could absorb new instruments without surrendering authority. That was another gift from the Bulawayo world. The city had long existed within regional circulation. It was familiar with sounds moving across borders. Its musicians did not have to choose between being Zimbabwean and being connected to Southern Africa. They could be both. Ilanga turned that confidence into ensemble music. Ilanga's larger importance lies in what the band represented. Zimbabwe had recently entered independence, the country was politically young, radio was powerful. Cassette tapes traveled, Live bands filled hotels, beer halls, weddings, clubs, and community spaces. A growing generation wanted music that felt confident, modern, and recognizably its own. Ilanga entered that moment with a sound built for collective life. This was music that could occupy several spaces at once. It could belong to an urban nightclub. It could move through a family celebration, could travel on radio, it could enter a long-distance journey, it could appeal to the listener following the arrangement and to the person who simply wanted to dance. That accessibility did not make the music intellectually shallow. The sophistication was inside the construction. The listener did not need to understand the technical decisions in order to feel their result. That is one sign of accomplished musicianship. Complex work arrives as pleasure. Ilanga also represented a different image of post-independence Zimbabwe. The musicians were not performing a country frozen in tradition. They were presenting Zimbabweans as contemporary people, people living in cities, people working with modern instruments, people listening across borders, people confident enough to combine several inheritances without asking permission to be authentic. This is where Ilanga and Solomon Skuza belong inside the same episode. They used different artistic structures. Skuza carried the authority of the storyteller, veteran, and social witness. Ilanga carried the collective intelligence of the band. Skuza showed that Kalanga and ensemble experience could enter national circulation without being diluted. Ilanga showed that musicians connected to Bulawayo could help organize a modern national sound. Skuza placed social questions inside rhythm. Ilanga placed several musical traditions inside arrangement. One demonstrated how an individual artist could help society reason with itself. The other demonstrated how musicians could negotiate with one another until individual talent became a shared musical language. Both emerged from a region shaped by movement. Railways connected communities, workers crossed borders, records and instruments traveled. Rural traditions entered townships. Church singing met nightclub performance. The liberation camp met the recording studio. Bulawayo became one of the places where those movements acquired musical form. That is why the city's contribution should not be measured only by counting how many famous artists were born there. The contribution was structural. Bulawayo helped create audiences capable of hearing several traditions at once. It helped create musicians comfortable moving between languages. It helped create instrumentalists who understood bands. It helped connect Zimbabwe to the wider Southern African musical world. It helped transform regional experience into national culture. Solomon Skuza and Ilanga revealed different parts of that system. Skuza preserved the moral pressure of independence. His music remembered sacrifice while asking what the country had done with its freedom. He carried regional languages into national argument. He allowed people to dance without asking them to stop thinking. Ilanga preserved another form of possibility. The band demonstrated that modernity did not require cultural surrender. It showed what Zimbabwean musicians could build when bass, guitar, keyboards, percussion and voice were treated as parts of one architecture. It showed that the ensemble itself could become an instrument. This is why 2 artists are enough for this episode. The purpose is not to complete a register of every musician connected to Bulawayo. The purpose is to understand contribution. More names would not automatically produce more depth. Through these 2 artist worlds, the larger argument becomes clear. Bulawayo did not merely participate in Zimbabwean music. It helped develop the languages, musicianship, confidence, and regional connections through which Zimbabwean popular music became national. The city should not be remembered only through what later closed, what employment disappeared, or what political recognition it did not receive. Those histories matter, but they cannot become the only language through which Bulawayo is narrated, because the city also produced joy. It produced rehearsal rooms, it produced musicians who understood one another across instruments and languages. It produced songs that moved from local experience into national possession. It produced artists who carried Zimbabwean life without reducing ordinary people to victims. People loved, they traveled, they worked, They remembered war, they questioned power, they entered nightclubs and weddings, they danced while trying to remain decent inside a changing country. Solomon Skuza documented that world. Ilanga gave it collective musical form. That is the Kopje Journal and Review's reading of Bulawayo's contribution. Solomon Skuza did not merely sing about Zimbabwe after independence, he helped that generation question what independence required. Ilanga did not merely assemble several talented performers. It demonstrated what Zimbabwean musicianship could become when talent learned to operate collectively. One made the dance floor a site of public reasoning. The other made the band a model of national possibility. Together they reveal a Bulawayo, of language, rhythm, discipline, movement and cultural authority. A city that did not merely listen to Zimbabwean music, city that helped build it. Thank you for watching. This is the Kopje Journal and Review, forensic analysis for the African perspective. What does Solomon Skuza's music preserve about the Zimbabwe that emerged from the liberation struggle? And what did Ilanga demonstrate about the possibilities of the Zimbabwean band? Tell us in the comments. We read all comments. If this cultural examination was useful, please like this video, subscribe and turn on notifications for more cultural, historical and forensic analysis on Zimbabwe, South Africa and the wider African region.